It's worth paying attention to this now. Woo-hoo, it's windy outside. I don't even know if my mic's gonna pick that up. I'm gearing up to do a battery test, and I'm setting up the 9 Pro side by side. This is my Surface Laptop Go 2. Neither device is doing anything. They're just sitting there, and the Go 2 fans start kicking on, doing nothing in my office, which at the time was roughly 64, 65 degrees Fahrenheit with the screen set to medium brightness. And that just kind of clicked for me. The cranky part of this review right up front, you can skip. I've got little time markers if you want to just get into the nuts and bolts of the Surface Pro 9. I make so many videos where I try to anticipate the criticisms of a product, but increasingly there are just some ideas that draw a ton of ire, and it never really seems to matter what I experienced using the product. People are walking into my videos with their own sort of preconceived opinions. And then I realized there are a lot more people watching these videos who just aren't leaving comments. So why am I focusing my attention on those stick in the mud commenting people? Those folks are a drag. They suck the fun out of trying new things. I've rewritten this script like 4 times now. And as I'm nearing the end of my long-term test drive with the Surface Pro 9 5G, I'm really gonna work towards ignoring the more annoying armchair criticisms of people who have never used products like this, but read the specs on a piece of paper once, and I'll just go back to muting the people that are antagonistic in my comments. There's the cranky preamble, and from here, the rest of this I'm hoping is gonna be a bit more fun, because we're gonna talk about battery life and performance, and I wanna get a part of the conclusion out of the way right up front. This thing was really fun to use. It scratches a very specific itch, and I have a pretty clear idea of who I think would be a good fit for a tablet like this. Just in general, if you're looking at a Surface Pro, that's a slate convertible tablet computer, that's already a pretty niche idea of portable computing. Laptops are mainstream, convertible tablets are a smaller chunk of that laptop pie. There are definitely consumers out there that want the literal flexibility of a slate, they want the noticeably better battery life of an ARM chip, and they want a full-fledged computer operating system. For that person, a more powerful and more expensive iPad Pro, not gonna scratch that itch, because it's running iPad OS. A Samsung Galaxy Tab might get you closer because you could run DeX, have a more Windows-like environment, but they'd also need to find Android app solutions for all their needs. I'm a huge fan of running desktop modes from our phone, so I definitely vibe with someone who could make that transition. But genuinely, the top solutions for this idea are going to be less expensive and less powerful devices like the Lenovo Duet 5 Chromebook or the more expensive and more powerful Surface Pro 9 SQ3. Microsoft isn't dividing their tablet lines based on the computing chips inside anymore. A Pro 9 is a Pro 9 is a Pro 9. Means the same tier of hardware and manufacturing and accessories. A part of the price is getting one of the best built tablets available on the market today. Is not as potentially bendy as some other premium slates have been in the past. This has really shined for that idea with that focus, comparing it against other ARM-based solutions, and it carves out some significant wins in specific areas. I feel really comfortable giving this an overall positive recommendation to folks out there interested in tablet computing. I believe the SQ3 demands a more nuanced examination of pros and cons, but it lives up to Microsoft's claims exceedingly well. It's this Surface, and then also there's the Lenovo laptop with a similar Qualcomm chip. These are the first real Windows on ARM products that I think we can take seriously. I've been dying for more ARM chips in consumer computers. I was the guy trying to strike up these conversations at Newegg years ago, in the middle of Intel versus AMD fights. I was the nerd in the back waving my hand like, hey guys, what about ARM? So right now in-house, for more modern Microsoft computers, I just have the Surface Laptop Go 2. This has a lower power Core i5 and the Surface Pro 9 SQ3. Now, there is a version of the Surface Pro 9 with a Core i5, and in most of the tests that we're going to be talking about in this video, I would expect better performance out of the Surface Pro Intel edition than the Surface Go 2. This is a nicely built but more affordable laptop. A Surface Pro is gonna beat this thing in almost every single race we can put them in. In no way, shape, or form. In no way is this an oranges to oranges comparison. I just needed some kind of baseline to show what this thing can do. You kind of need to put different computers opposite this to get some idea of the context. Ideally, it would have been Surface Pro 9 Intel versus Surface Pro 9 Qualcomm, but I couldn't get my hands on both at the same time. The Go 2 has been absolutely brilliant. In our home, it replaced our old Pixelbook Go as the ubiquitous web browser and terminal that moves all around the house. It's little, it's well built, it gets solid battery life, and the Pro 9 SQ3 just slaps the Go 2 around for battery by a bit. Just a bit of those technical specifications. The Go 2 has a 40 watt-hour battery. The Pro 9 has a 46 watt-hour battery, giving this about a 15% capacity advantage, just battery size to battery size. Now, what I'm about to do here is not particularly scientific, but it's a practical look at real-world runtime. I streamed a movie locally over Wi-Fi from my NAS, a 1080p HD Blu-ray rip of a really fun action film, and I ran both systems for 2 hours. Both systems starting off reporting a completely 100% full battery. I matched the brightness on both screens using an old Lux meter I had lying around. The Go 2 was at about 65% brightness, and that seemed to be the same light output as the Pro 9, between 51-52% brightness, so I just bumped it up to 53% brightness to be on the safe side. Pro 9 has a higher resolution and a higher refresh rate display that should tax the internal guts of this just a teeny bit more, though in a video streaming test, I don't think refresh should matter as much. I purposely kept the video playing half screen just so I could keep an eye on the reported battery. It should come as zero surprise that the Go 2 used up a larger percent of its battery, roughly 40% over a 2-hour test. The Pro 9 only used 21% over the same period. If battery was a physical quantity of watt-hour goo, the Go 2 used 16 units of watt-hour goo, and the Pro 9 used 9.6 units of watt-hour goo. Not quite half as much, but less than 2/3 as much. And we could further improve battery life in the field by doing things like restricting the refresh rate, but I enjoy the eye candy, so I left that on. This comes out of the box at 120 hertz. So looking at those numbers, doing a little basic math, you should be able to see this is better than just the 15% battery capacity advantage. This is demonstrably better performance per watt. I think we'd all agree that's a solid perk for a tablet. Now, comparing performance is trickier because of the chip differences and all the ways that we could test. There are so many different permutations of a comparison here. We can use proper x86 desktop software. There are Windows-specific apps. Windows 11 also includes support for Android subsystem, and we can install Linux software through Ubuntu. Even for the extended test drive, Microsoft, thanks for sending this my way, I could not properly test all of those permutations and come up with something comprehensive. So we're just going to cherry pick a few interesting segments that I thought stood out. Starting off, if we're looking at synthetic benchmark scores running in Windows, the Go 2 wins for single core performance and the SQ3 wins for multi-core. And if we look at other people's scores, the Core i5 Surface Pro 9 bumps up the single core score by another 25% over the Go 2. But if we run Geekbench on both of these systems as an Android app, the SQ3 beats the Go 2 for both single and multi-core performance. As an Android tablet, the SQ3 is about 10% behind the Galaxy Tab S8 Ultra in single core, but again, takes a win for multi-core performance. x86 apps take a performance hit on this tablet, but we can look at a CPU-intense task like file compression. RAR performs pretty well as a multi-core test, and I've even been using it to test Android phones. The Pro 9 takes a modest win over the Go 2, pacing it by about a full megabyte per second. Assuming a significant bump on the Intel Surface Pro, a Core i5 should beat the SQ3, but not by much. And against Android competitors, the SQ3 is 30% more powerful than new phones running the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 and roughly 40% faster than the Galaxy Tab S8 Plus. Pardon the interruption, but we got to take a quick second just to thank this video's sponsor, who is you. They're literally helping me keep the lights on here in the Gadget Lab. All of the fine folks over on patreon.com/somegadgetguy who are directly supporting production for this channel. And of course, all of you who can't financially support all of your favorite content creators, those of you who are making an effort beyond just watching a video, you're sharing on social media, on Reddit, through Discord servers. We will not be able to continue making new videos for you to watch if you aren't supporting them. We never want support to feel like a burden. So if you have the means, I would love for you to check out the Patreon community. Early access for videos, you get to stream videos in 4K without ads or interruptions. I'm posting more written content there, camera deep dives, production diaries. We have our own private Discord, and it's just a really fun collection of tech geeks to get into lively conversations and spirited debates. That community can be found, once again, at patreon.com/somegadgetguy, but I greatly appreciate any effort someone might make in trying to help broaden the tech conversation. Anything we can do to expand beyond just passively consuming what the YouTube algorithm says is already popular. Thank you for all the support. I've got some really fun things planned, not only for this channel, but for this whole little growing community. So stay tuned. I think it's going to be pretty good times. And now let's get back to the rest of the video. The main difference you're gonna feel using both chips side by side. Intel systems seem to launch x86 programs faster. You kind of notice it. But when you're really working in the app, the performance delta isn't felt as directly. In specific instances, the SQ3 is able to brute force faster performance even through that emulation deficit. It's launching that desktop style program where the SQ3 feels kind of pokey, like editing photos in Affinity. That's my favorite photo editing software. Takes a bit to get that program up and running. Doing the work feels fine. It's just opening the app, keep you waiting for a little bit. But we can also look at newer Microsoft apps that might be leveraging the internals here a little bit better, like Clipchamp. Clipchamp is a little app we can cut up some video, and the SQ3 does still launch it slower. It can take 5 or 6 seconds longer to get into the app than it does when we're launching it off of the Surface Go 2. But actually editing in the app, the SQ3 is pretty handy. I loaded up some time-lapse clips and I created a 1-minute HD project. Now the Go 2 takes about 1:20 to prepare the clips. The SQ3 took about 44 seconds. And then taking those clips, finishing a 1-minute video 1080p resolution, the Go 2 took 5 minutes and 22 seconds to render that 1-minute video. The SQ3 rendered the same clips in the same configuration for the same timeline in 4 minutes and 41 seconds. Now, Clipchamp is not serious work video editing. It's a fun little editing app for social media stuff. It's not the fastest at chewing up videos, but it is a pretty fun comparison. It's one of the few apps out there that we can literally use the exact same app to compare on different platforms. So I wanted to do something kind of silly. I took the same clips that I turned into a 1-minute project file and I just copy pasted and I just repeated them to create a 1-hour long project. I did not wait to finish the total render. I don't think either system could have finished that 1-hour project on battery life. I just wanted to see how far they could go. I wanted to see how far each would get on battery after an hour of rendering. Surprisingly, the SQ3 used a higher quantity of its battery capacity. We got a similar percentage of battery used, but this has a larger capacity battery, so this means the SQ3 was using more power over that hour of rendering. But it rendered more than double the amount of footage over my laptop Go 2. And the estimated time to completion, the amount of project that was remaining after that hour, was 3 times faster than the Go 2. This is a small but tantalizing taste of the potential for this kind of chip. Right now, in pure horsepower, AMD and Intel are the champs. No one's gonna argue there. If you can allow for a higher power draw and you can tame higher thermals, x86 is gonna take a win. That's kind of a no-brainer. When software is made for ARM chips, the performance per watt is absolutely stunning. And because you're getting more work done at a lower wattage, you don't have to factor as much cooling into the construction. I'm not super bullish on the Pro 9 SQ3 for content creation. That's not something I think I would recommend a lot of folks pick this machine up to do. We can edit some fun little video clips and share them to our TikToks, but we really don't have the software support in Windows and Windows on ARM, and nor could I find a good reputable way to install good Android editing apps, but we can cut a bit in Kdenlive. 4K footage basically becomes a slideshow when you're scrubbing through your timeline, but you can kinda do it. Linux for the win. x86 Surfaces and laptops would take a win for being able to properly install and use professional video editing software like DaVinci Resolve. It's kinda painful using Resolve on my laptop Go 2, but I could do it if I really needed to. The SQ3 will install DaVinci and it will say that it's installed successfully, but unfortunately the GPU can't be seen by some apps. It's a running issue with a handful of x86 programs and games, and that makes testing more difficult. And that causes programs like DaVinci to fail when you're trying to load them up. I have a whole separate video looking at games that work well and games that fail. That GPU issue kind of manifests even in some of our entertainment software. But two lighter games that I enjoy, I've started with Tetris Effect, comparing directly against the more affordable Intel machine, matching resolution at 720p. The Go 2 caps at 60 Hz. The Pro 9 is able to stay above 60 Hz, averaging somewhere around 70 frames per second, but it will dip lower than 60 FPS in more animated transitions between your different boards. Another one of my favorite games from last year, playing Shredder's Revenge, the SQ3 is able to stay near 100 frames per second at the full resolution of the screen. The Go 2 takes some occasional dips below 60 frames per second at its full resolution, and this has a lower resolution display than the Pro 9. Both of those games got the Go 2 fans spinning up pretty hard during a medium-length play session, about 45 minutes. I saw no discernible performance drops on the Pro 9, playing over similar time frames, and while the back got warm, it was running cooler than the Go 2. Even though we know the Core i5 and Core i7 Pros will definitely outperform the SQ3 version, it doesn't mean you can't game on this machine. There are plenty of games, especially indie and arcadey titles, that play great and stay well above 60 FPS. So that's the crux of this whole long-term experience for me. The SQ3 performance is actually quite good in most situations. Even through emulation, we're not suffering just because it might take some apps a little longer to load. When apps include better support for this chip, the tablet is a screamer. Using Android apps, the tablet is a screamer. I really wish I could have tried both an Intel and a Qualcomm Surface Pro side by side, but the more I used the SQ3, the less I really cared about more horsepower. I was genuinely happier looking down and seeing that I had plenty of battery left while I was away from a charger. The one area where Intel still struggles, not performance. The performance on an Intel Surface is gonna be great, but the performance per watt. I think it makes sense for that consumer who's going to own one Surface tablet and they want to know they can tax it harder for gaming and content creation. They should probably lean Intel. I'm not completely sure I believe that the main target, the majority of Surface consumers are that kind of high performance enthusiast. If gaming and content creation are more serious needs for your daily compute life, I think it makes more sense to shift expectations and look at more traditional laptop style machines with discrete GPUs. I feel better putting this up against the consumer who is seriously shopping a nicer Android tablet or an iPad Pro. Now, I've already talked about how I feel this ranks against something like the newest iPad Pro, but it's also a fair comparison against a Galaxy Tab S8 Plus. The Surface is going to be a little more expensive than the Galaxy Tab when you fully accessorize it with keyboards and pens, and the Tab has DeX, so you can use it more like a proper PC. But the Surface has a real PC operating system. It can use Amazon or side-loaded Android apps, can install full-fledged Linux applications. The Galaxy Tab can take an SD card if you want to bump up some internal storage, but the Surface can be upgraded with a higher capacity SSD, and it's really easy just popping a little pin tool to get to that SSD. That's something we've never seen in an ARM-based slate before, to my knowledge. Please someone correct me in the comments if there has been an ARM tablet with upgradable storage in the past. Against Android tablets, the software solution is really healthy too. Microsoft tends to support devices for a while. We just recently saw support for Windows 8 come to an end. That's a good 10 years of software support. There's no way to know how Windows 11 and Windows on ARM machines will be handled, but there's a pretty good track record so far for updates. The hilarious side of this, Android 13 is only on around 5% of the global market for Android devices. But if you install the newest update for the Android subsystem for Windows 11, you're probably already running Android 13. Microsoft was only a couple weeks behind Samsung. The Galaxy Tab S8 line got Android 13, and shortly after, Windows 11 got Android 13. If your phone is not yet running Android 13, your Windows PCs probably have it beat. And we shouldn't discount Linux. Now, we could look at Chrome OS. That does a terrific job of supporting Linux programs. But software support on Chromebooks for Chrome OS is probably gonna be shorter than update support for Windows on the Surface Pro. But looking at Linux software, the SQ3 should handily outperform any of the other ARM-based Chrome notebooks and tablets that are out and available now. Outperforming it at a significantly higher retail price, but outperforming it nonetheless. And that's the thing for me about a Surface Pro. It's a tablet. I feel if you're wanting a higher performance compute machine that will likely need to be plugged in more frequently, you could put more of the cost towards the performance and less of the cost towards the portability. If you have a Surface Pro and it's on your desk almost exclusively plugged in, you paid a lot for a machine that was supposed to go places. It's like adjusting the sliders in your favorite RPG character creator. I have these resource points called dollars, and I'm putting more resource points towards portability and battery life, but that means I have fewer resource points for content creation and graphics intense gaming. I won't fail a skill check there if I want to do those things. I just won't do them as well as another character might. I'm rambling here. I'm getting to the end, I promise. This is the first step, and this is a critical first step. This is where I feel a broader swath of consumers can take this more seriously. And in many cases, folks might not even notice that there are significant differences between the various models of Surface Pro, especially if someone is retiring an older system like a Surface Pro 6, or if someone's workload is more focused on office or document work. I have to appreciate an ARM tablet with a proper, grown-up, full-fledged computer operating system. There is no other product that handles this level of convertible use, both software and hardware, this fluidly. We should expect future iterations of Windows on ARM machines to improve. The SoCs will get more powerful, but we'll have to see how Qualcomm's court cases play out against ARM in their current IP and licensing disputes. But this right here, this is our first step into the mainstream, and it's a pretty solid step. That's gonna do it for me. I have to pack this back up and send it back to Microsoft. But I'll still be able to answer some questions on stuff in the comments, for more specifics on what I did to test and what some of those performance numbers look like. And also check out my other videos, especially if you were curious about gaming, because real PC gaming on this thing is actually pretty decent. As always, thanks so much for watching, for sharing these videos, subscribing to the channel. All of the support is always greatly appreciated. It's been fantastic. Thank you so much. Those of you who are clicking links in the video description, if you're going to my home site, somegadgetguy.com, if you're shopping a little bit of merch, or if you're joining the list of names scrolling by on your screen from my Patreon, patreon.com/somegadgetguy. This list is basically the coolest collection of tech pals in the Omniverse. So I hope you'll check them out. Now, you know where you can find me around the rest of the internet, at somegadgetguy, on the Twitters and the Twitch, not so much on the Facebooks or the Instagrams. And I'm trying to revive some funny things like my Flickr account. Oh, and the Mastodon. You can follow me over on the Mastodon, and I will catch you all on the next video.